And as you can see, there's an alliance between the trans flag and the British flag, and I respect that. However, I see no alliance with this dog. How dare you put your nose there? Check manifolded, bitch!
Being on this platform for more than a year and a half, I've had my fair share of good and bad experiences, and have had to learn a lot on the journey to where I am now. But if there's one important thing I've gained from making all these videos and doing all this research, is that it's truly difficult to realize what an event was actually like, unless you've experienced it yourself. And while I do know some things about Bluey's history myself, I wasn't there when Joe Brum got his dog Rusty, or when he and his crew made those pilots for the show, and I'll admit that there is probably a lot I certainly don't know. But with that said, I really wanted to talk about this specific event because it's a completely different story, and one that's truly special to me. An event in which hundreds, if not thousands of people across the world worked around the clock for one small, yet amazing project. And despite all kinds of trouble, confusion, anger, and attacks, made it through to the very end with the help of many walks of life, and the most unexpected of allies. And while this may seem unbelievable, I know it was true, because I was one of many who witnessed it unfold in front of my very own eyes, and it's something I will never forget. This is the story of Bluey in r/place. So I'm sure most of you are already aware of what this whole r/place thing is about, but for the few who don't know, I'll provide a quick summary. Basically, it's a social experiment where anyone, and I mean anyone, can place a pixel on one gigantic, large canvas, but with the catch that one can only place a pixel on it every 5 minutes or so. And upon premiering in 2017, many often worked in groups, creating flags, art, memes, and other things to create the final work you're seeing on screen. And despite the great success of the initial event, it would not return the following year, and would continue to remain as just a one-time thing. That was, until March of 2022, when it was surprisingly announced that the event would finally return on April 1st. And as you can imagine, literally everyone and their grandma and dog wanted to be a part of it. And speaking of dogs, let's talk about that show. You know it, and I'm sure you love it, Bluey. And while Bluey does have quite the following now, the Blue Healer and her friends weren't around in 2017, or at least not in their final form. So when the news broke that a new event was starting, I was pretty stoked. I mean, having a chance to put Bluey on such a large canvas for basically the entire world to see, amongst other legendary icons, seemed like an awesome idea, and a great way to show how popular the series had become. And I must have not been the only one, because shortly after the announcement, user GigaGambi uploaded a post to the Bluey subreddit, and instantly, many were on board with the idea, agreeing to participate in the event and support Bluey. But despite all of the support in the subreddit, many of us came to the realization that it would not be easy, especially with the insane amount of competition that would be present. Could Bluey really have a chance against the largest fandoms and empires of the world, and make her mark on internet history? Well, of course. I put in the title for a reason, but let me tell ya, it was quite the adventure to get there, and one nobody could expect. Shortly after the day began, the big event finally started, and everyone scrambled to stake their claim, running to grab basically any space available. But when it came to finding a place for our beloved blue dog, things weren't off to the best start. Quite the opposite, really. Upon attempting to set up camp, the place was quickly overrun, as there were far from enough people to keep it actually up and running, so another place was quickly chosen. But after setting up in a second location, some stuff was actually completed, but there was a lot to be desired. Because even though we finally got a snippet of something that resembled Bluey, that's all we were able to get, as by now, we were kind of stuck in a pickle, as space had already become quite scarce, and if we ever wanted to expand, we would either have to move somewhere else, or invade our neighbors, neither of which were exactly great options. But since there was nowhere else to go anyways, it was eventually decided to do the latter. But predictably, it didn't really work, as our neighbors continued to hold their ground, and officially out of options, everyone just kind of agreed to stay in their place and not invade each other, resulting in this tiny, cramped space you see on screen. But hey, despite it being pretty tight, at least we got something. It can't get any worse, right? Yes, it certainly could. With little warning, the Quebec flag began to expand, and it was heading directly towards Bluey, and fast. It was like trying to defend a sandcastle from a tsunami, a hopeless defense that was quickly washed away, ran over as if it was nothing. And just like that, Bluey and all of her neighbors were just gone, and it felt like everything was over. And at this point, nobody was really sure what to do, or if we could do anything at all. Perhaps it was time to go home, since there were really no options at this point. But then, when it seemed as if all hope was lost, a stroke of luck completely changed the course of this story. Because while one disaster seemingly caused our final fate, another would completely save it. As while we were busy defending our second location, a dark, mysterious void had opened up beneath us, erasing everything it touched, but creating some fresh, new real estate for the taking. And upon having to move, it was quickly decided to make this area our new home. And while it wasn't perfect, it was a lot more comfortable. AKA, we wouldn't have to be decapitated inside of a box. But of course, just when we thought we were safe, a gigantic force began to expand fast, and just our luck, we were directly in its path. And this force was none other than the flag of the United States, one of the most powerful countries in the freaking world. How could we possibly fight such a massive group? Well, of course that's a trick question, because we wouldn't have been able to. And for a time, it felt like Bluey's head would be permanently erased. But thankfully, Bluey's life was luckily spared, as the US members were surprisingly nice to us, and basically just went around us before eventually receding. Phew, that was close. Thank goodness we're not next to any other global powers that could erase us on a whim. And on top of that, we even got a few neighbors who were actually pretty nice to us. Also, we finally got Bluey a body. I mean, yeah, it looks kinda weird, but let's go! Everything is finally perfect. Welp, it looked like the UK just erased some of our neighbors and are literally right on our nose. And did I mention that this all occurred on just day 1? Thankfully, day 2 wasn't as chaotic as the first day, but it still proved to be its own set of struggles. Because at this point, we were basically stuck between the increasingly large territory of the UK, and there happened to be a void literally above our head. But hey, Bluey's still smiling. She seems to be enjoying it. However, as everyone tried and failed to fix Bluey's nose for the 100th time, things began to heat up. Because if I'm being honest, I actually was pretty happy with what we had, as it was better than anything we got before. But not everyone was happy, because while Bluey was looking okay, some people wanted more. One of the most popular proposals was to expand Bluey by building her sister Bingo next to her, and that it would cover the current left corner of the UK flag. And when asked about it in their subreddit, most of the people seemed relatively cool with it, so it was decided to begin work on Bingo as a friendly companion. But just like a good political argument, with any support comes its opposition. As mentioned before, most were cool with the addition of Bingo and loved the show, but there were also some who felt that the addition was a bit too much. And there were even a few who wanted Bluey gone entirely, although this seemed to have just been a very small, vocal minority. And as things began to escalate, all hell essentially broke loose, with the Bluey fandom and the UK in a constant argument over who was in the wrong, which is honestly something I never expected to see within my lifetime. But to summarize, the UK members believed that Bingo was invading their territory and was essentially an invasion on their land, while the Bluey community believed that it was unfair since the UK was significantly more powerful, and that they were basically trying to defend land that had been taken from previous allies. Insert British colonialism joke here. But after what seemed like an endless back and forth banter, it was eventually decided to hold a vote in the UK's Discord server to see what they wanted, and although it had to be redone amidst all of the chaos and yelling, it was eventually agreed that Bingo would not be added to the UK flag, and would have to be removed. And shortly after, Bingo was slowly evaporated, eroded into the Union Jack as her sister watched from above. But yet, Bluey still smiled as if nothing had happened. You know what? I don't know if she's being brave anymore. She just might be crazy or something. And no, the eyes are not helping. But hey, at least you can tell it's Bluey. While Bluey continued to last, thanks to the help of many across the world now, the mood can be best described as melancholic, if you even know what that word means. After all, we still had Bluey, but many were still upset about the loss of Bingo, and it probably didn't help that an attempt to build her in another location had failed due to the small crew present. And although relations began to improve, actual relations between the members of Bluey and the UK flag were still pretty rocky, as a few were still upset over the previous debacle. And it probably didn't help that Bluey was also forced to reposition her nose so the UK flag could be complete. And I feel like I should be really upset that this change had to happen, but I'm actually kind of glad it did because I honestly liked this design so much more. I mean, if there's one good thing we got out of this cut, was that she finally has a nose, and not a banana with a paint splotch. However, that wasn't all that happened, because not only was Bluey's nose pushed away, but her legs just disappeared too? Like, wait, what happened? It was all going so good! Darn. And although pushes were made to get the space back, the effort proved futile. And unfortunately, we had to cut back even further. But thankfully, aside from the previous events, everything slowly began to calm down, and as less invasions occurred, it was time to make the best of the space we had left. And with this in mind, another design for Bluey was drafted, and as a nice detail, it was even decided to give her an orange heart, which served as a tribute to her sister Bingo. A perfect end for the final day that laid ahead. Day 4. At last, we finally made it into the home stretch. And as the final day of r/place had begun, it was surprisingly peaceful. The only real conflict was with Peru's territory, as some Bluey members and a few other members were unhappy with the space taken up. and an attempt was made to expand by including the name r/Bluey, which was the subreddit where most of Bluey's supporters came from. However, although it was successfully built, it did not last long, and once again, it was quickly erased. But thankfully, despite everything that had happened, Bluey still remained. And despite her small size amongst everything else around her, she didn't go unnoticed, as despite how many fans were participating in her maintenance, there were many who were unaware of her appearance on r/place, and were pleasantly surprised by seeing her. And one post on Reddit even went a little viral. And apart from a few incidents here and there, it seemed as if Bluey would actually be a success. We now had a relatively large support team to protect her, and as the final day wore on, it appeared as if we were actually gonna make it. And despite all of the previous fights, it appeared that things were becoming kind of somewhat peaceful for once. And there was even an attempt by people from all of our neighbors, including the UK, to even reclaim some of the territory taken over by Peru's sky. And although it didn't work, it showed that alliances had been healing, and that despite the previous incidents, many were still friendly and willing to get along. And with everything beginning to calm down for once, I decided that perhaps, after everything I witnessed, it was finally time to catch up and take a little break. You know, work on videos, procrastinate, and just give my little anxious mind a chance to relax. But as I laid in my bed, something interesting happened. Immediately, I knew it was coming from Discord, calling for a meeting for everyone in the r/place server. Now at first, I wasn't honestly too alarmed, since we've been all called into immediate action before, often for threats such as potential invasions or to enact new plans. But upon arriving at the scene, something began that nobody could expect. As a final twist to r/place, all of the colors were immediately changed to white, without any warning and with no way to stop it. Once white had been placed on top of another color, that was it. Nothing could be done, and it would be gone forever. And in an attempt to preserve Bluey for as long as possible, orders were given to place nothing, and the few bots used to protect her were halted as quickly as possible. But no matter what was done, the floodgates had already opened, and in front of everyone's eyes, Bluey, alongside all of her allies, opponents, and everything between and beyond, were gone. And just like that, despite all of our efforts, the alliances, the fights, and the fanfare, Bluey's life was over, as she faded into the blank white light, the exact same place where it all began. So with everything said, you might be wondering, why was this important? What, through all of the sleepless nights, heated arguments, and overbearing anxiety made this all worth it? And wasn't the whole point to leave a mark on history? A mark that was unceremoniously wiped like a drawing on a whiteboard? Well, I mean, we did get a pretty cool piece of Bluey pixel art that you can now buy as a sticker, and archives still exist of the entire canvas, including Bluey herself. But perhaps, was there something else we all gained from this? Because it showed that despite how recent the show is, it has a following. One that wasn't the largest, but still big and dedicated enough to find a spot on a canvas basically the entire world was fighting to get onto. And besides how awesome the final product was, I would also argue that it was the community behind it that made it truly matter. Because I don't think there was ever a time like this, where people from all corners of the fandom just put aside their differences and just all got together to participate in this event. And while I strongly support Bluey, I will openly admit that there were a few bad apples on our team who didn't make the best decisions or say the best stuff, and certainly didn't help the existing issues. Like, there was this thing where a couple of really upset Bluey fans tried to destroy the heart of the UK and the trans flag, and while I strongly support Bluey, I feel like, yeah, that was uncalled for, and if anything, only made the existing drama worse. But overall, the few who acted badly on any side were of course a small minority, and firsthand, I saw tons of people on both sides who happily worked together without issue, choosing to make friends rather than enemies. And seeing all of these stories about people randomly coming across Bluey and being so excited about it was also another thing that, in my opinion, made it all worth it. But that's just my take on the whole occasion. And to give this video a true sense of justice, I'll leave you all with some great statements provided by some members and mods of the Bluey Discord server. R/place is coming to an end. We can only place white tiles right now. I just want to say it was an honor fighting, defending, and adapting with all of you. We got dealt some hard situations, and we came out stronger every single time. We made it to the end with our main vision intact, and that's something to be super proud of. It has been an honor working with all of you. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I love you all. And in spite of sitting in front of my computer all day, this has been the most exciting 4 days I've had in a long time. I hope you stick with us, because the celebration has only just begun. Hi everyone. This whole experience has just been wow. Shaping both such a beautiful pixel art that will be part of internet history forever, and an amazing community of kids, teens, and adults who all have a passion for the same cartoon doggo. I am truly so grateful to have had the opportunity to be a part of this, and it's been something fun, unusual, and happy to look forward to after school. I know you hear this all the time to the point it loses its meaning, but this server truly wouldn't be what it is without you all. From the bottom of me, and all the mods and friends I've made, thank you so much. Thanks. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart and all the mods here, you guys have been nothing short of fantastic. It's been a wild ride. We had humble beginnings, clashes with the UK, survived multiple voids, and made many friends along the way. You guys have been great at communicating well with each other, and with others. Yes, there have been some stress points, but we made it through just fine. And it made our community come together even more. Look at how many people we have reached. And I'm proud to say that with very few exceptions, we all embodied everything the show we love stands for. This community is going to hold a special place in all of our hearts, I'm sure. Thanks for being a Bluey, Bingo, Bandit, or Chili in your own special way. We are all healers here. Well done. You do not climb Mount Mom and Dad
by trying to race ahead on your own, or by competing with your comrades. You do it slowly and carefully, by unselfish teamwork.